Hello friends, this is Otz, and yesterday we had a look at the new perks that will be coming to Dead by Daylight very soon. 3 on the new Killer and 3 on the new Survivor. And when I saw the latest one they introduced, Scavenger, I lost my mind. I thought this perk was insane, and I went on a massive rant about it. Here's what it does. The second part of the perk is completely fine. It lets you do a second search on any open chest to get a basic toolbox. I don't have any problem with this. Very similar to pharmacy for medkits or residual manifest for flashlights. We've had this before. It's not a big deal. I think this is completely fine. It allows you maybe to get a toolbox for the end game, do some saboing. I think that's totally fine. Not a problem with that. The main issue comes with the first part of the perk. When you have a toolbox that is completely used up and you hit 4 great skill checks, the toolbox automatically repairs itself to the full amount. And this is insane. This is game breaking. I probably don't need to explain to you that this is not super good on a Sabo toolbox or on a little, no add-ons brown toolbox. This is really strong. However, on the repairing toolboxes that are on the stronger end, namely the Commodio's toolbox, which is probably the best one in the game, and especially the Engineer's toolbox. Now, the Engineer's toolbox is a little bit worse than the previous one, but it burns itself very quick, which means you have even more time to hit the skill checks. So with these two, I thought this perk was insane. And as I said, I went on a massive rant and started arguing with people and got very emotional over it. And I was very disappointed that they would add a perk so strong. But then I slept on it, as it's a good thing to do. And I thought to myself, maybe this is not that big of a deal. Maybe this is not some game breaking. In theory, yeah, it does sound really good, but maybe in practice, it's just not that strong. So today, I got together with my friend and streamer buddy, Adriana Imai, and we did some testing. This is not a theoretically best possible case scenario thing. This is a real case scenario of us playing normally and hitting skill checks normally, paying attention, but still missing a few, and just to see what happens. We did a number of gens, we recorded the results, and here they are. So, with a toolbox, either the Engineers or the Commodios, both are very close. On your first gen, you save about 21 seconds on average. In my opinion, I think this is absolutely busted. Absolutely busted. And I've made a video explaining in more detail why, if you want to watch that. But this is nothing new. This already was in the game for a long time, so this is what you get on your very first gen that you do with it. Nothing alarming here, nothing new. The problem is that once you get your toolbox back, on your second gen, on average, we saved 19 seconds. A little bit less due to a number of factors, but almost as much. You basically get a really strong toolbox that even in tournaments is banned. And you get to use it twice. For no good reason, for free pretty much. Now you might think, well, Odds, what if you don't get the skill checks? What if you miss the skill checks? Well, if you miss the skill checks, you might still be fine. Me and Adriana, we still miss plenty of skill checks, and we still got it to work 100% of the time. In 25% of the cases, we finished the first gen and we already had the toolbox back. And in the other 75%, we got it on the second generator. And obviously, if you do 3 generators or multiple people have this, yeah, you're going to get at least 1 to proc. There is a possibility that if you miss skill checks enough, you won't get it. But it seems very unlikely to happen unless you are playing on console with very low FPS and you really struggle to hit skill checks. If you hit them like 70 or 60 or 80% of the time, which I think is what we did, that's enough to get value out of this perk almost every time. Almost every time, which is pretty insane. Now, some people might make the mistake of believing that this is a perk that you need to use with a bunch of other stuff. And you certainly can. Like, some people might be like, oh, Odds, what if you use Scavenger with Hyperfocus so you get more skill checks, with Stakeout so you hit the great skill checks, with Streetwise so the toolbox lasts longer, with Prove Thyself so you can do it with other people, with Resilience, with a Spine Shield so you get more skill checks. You don't need to do any of this. You certainly can, and I'm sure you'll see some insane clip at some point of someone doing this, but you don't have to. You don't have to use any of this. This perk is so strong on its own that if you just bring it with a good toolbox and say 2 or 3 people bring this in a game, it's almost impossible for the killer, unless they are, you know, extremely lucky or good, to prevent at least 1 or 2 people from using this. And 1 or 2 people getting 2 toolboxes is very detrimental to the game, in my opinion. Now, if you want to go for an insane combo that doesn't take your entire build, which is a little bit much, you can do this. And this is extremely dirty. I didn't believe in this when someone mentioned it, but we tested it, and it is really stupid. So the idea is that you're going to use Scavenger. You're going to use your toolbox, burn it on your first gen, which will save you the aforementioned 20-ish seconds, which is still a lot. And then you're going to get 3 Scavenger tokens, 3 of them. If you get more, you're going to miss it on purpose. You're going to hit a good so that you're on 3. Then, during some downtime, you're going to go into a locker and use build to last to get your toolbox back. What's going to happen then is that you can do another gen, do your entire toolbox, hit 1 great skill check, and then another 3rd toolbox. In my opinion, it's a little bit overkill, and you do waste about 12 seconds getting into a locker, which may or may not be a big deal, but you get 3 toolboxes. 3 toolboxes automatically, and when the toolbox comes back, you don't even have to let go and click it. It automatically starts using it. Using this strategy and not even doing it perfectly, we still miss some skill checks. Adriana saved like 40 seconds on a gen, and I saved like 30 something. On average, we saved 38 seconds on a gen. We did a gen almost in half the time because we have basically 2 toolboxes as a 1-man repair operation. That is insane. That is insane. But even that, if you think it's too complicated, is whatever. Just the fact that you can use this perk to make 2 insanely strong toolboxes is absolutely beyond me. The saddest part is that the perk itself is not the problem. The problem is not the perk. Rather, it's what these toolboxes do. The fact that they make the gems much faster and that they give skill checks much quicker, which also contributes compared to not having a toolbox, it's insane. It's insane. So yeah, my first gut is that this perk was bad for the game, and now that I've done a bit of the numbers, and I'll be happy to share them on screen if you want to like double check, I do still think I am even more in the belief that this perk cannot come to live servers the way it is in the PTB. You know, some people will make the argument that, oh, but killers have this other really strong thing. Fine, nerf that as well. I do think both sides have things on the extremes that should be trimmed down a bit. That, you know, I will agree with. And some other people have also made the argument that it's a one-time perk use. And that I just cannot agree with. If 4 survivors can each bring this perk, and you can maybe see 2 or 3 a game, that's not a one-time use anymore. Adrenaline is a one-time use perk, and somehow it's like the most popular perk in the game because you don't really get to use it once. It has multiple effects, and you have 4 people potentially that could use it. It's not a one-time really used perk, so lose me with that argument, and please do the testing yourself if you don't believe me. This perk is insane.